Hello everybody, this is my video on the Canon AE1 program, a excellent film SLR camera made by Canon. This camera came out in 1981 and it was the successor to the earlier AE1, which non-program essentially, which was made in about 76. And it also succeeded the AE1 that was made in 1978 when I was born actually. So yes, this came out in 81. It's an FD mount Canon camera, so it's not an EOS mount. And if I show you, you take the release is actually on the lens, not on the body. So you hold that down and turn, and then the lens comes off. You line up the red dot in the center there. Click, and that's back on. Yeah, so big difference really on this one was that it had the program AE mode, which is a fully automatic mode. So it sets the shutter speed and the aperture for you, and all you have to do is line up that green A with the line there. So if I can get that. So you have to sort of hold down this little black depressed button there, and then that allows you to click the A in, and now it won't move, it's locked in A. I'd have to press that down again to take it back off into like F22, etc. So hold that down, click it in, it's now clicked into A, won't come off. Set the shutter speed to green as well, so it's green and green, so that's on program. And that is now in basically program mode. And you can, I've got the 50mm 1.8 prime lens on here, which is a great sharp prime lens, kind of came as standard with this camera, or a lot of people have the 1.4 as well. So with that, what you have to do is take it from L, which is locked, is effectively off, put it into A, which is on, wind it on, and it takes the shot. It's got a lovely shutter sound like that. Put it back into lock and it's off, and then so I can't take the shot when it's in lock. When it's locked, put it back into that, so it's on and it's working out. And you'll see through the viewfinder when it's in program mode, it'll basically be working it out so that you can just focus on composition and learning to manually focus, which is why this is such a great camera for people that are kind of getting into film SLRs, and it's very popular, especially at the moment. So what happens is when it's in program mode, you look through the viewfinder and it will show you the aperture that you're going to get, and it will blink and flash the number if there's not enough light. The other thing you can do is you can hold that down, that little, it's almost hard to see, but that little black button I was showing earlier there, put it onto any, so say 1.8, so you've got a nice shallow depth of field for portraits, or 2.8, and then take this and set the shutter speed you want. To say it was taking somebody's portrait by a sort of natural window light indoors, so 60th of a second at 2.8 is a common setting for that. And when you look through there, if that's not enough light for that setting, it'll the aperture will flash until it's on an aperture that's letting in enough light that it can take the shot and exposed correctly. So it's a bit slower because you've got to, if you're determined that you want it on say f2.8 and you look through and it's flashing, you then have two choices. You either make it 1.8 but it's more shallow depth of field, or you leave it on 2.8 and you reduce the shutter speed to say 30th of a second or 15th of a second. Obviously if you get too low then you might get motion blur if they move. But you've got that fully manual control, which is great. Or you can flick back to program mode, or you can leave that on the A, but not put this in program mode, and it's now in shutter priority mode. So what that means is you set the shutter you want, so say you want it on 1,000th of a second, and it's to freeze the action, say sports or something like that. That's on A, so it's automatic, so that means it will automatically set the correct aperture, so say f8 or f11 on a sunny day, or it'll get lower down to f4 or 2.8 if it gets overcast, to ensure that you still get that 1,000th of a second shutter speed that you want. So that's the shutter priority mode. It will again, there's you'll see like a P, and that will flash, or there'll be a aperture number in the viewfinder, and it'll flash if there's just not enough light for that shutter speed. So if that happens, then you could change it maybe down to 500th of a second and see what happens then. And it might go, yeah, okay, I can take a shot at 500th of a second, but I'm only going to give you an aperture of 2.8 because there's not much light. So that's your kind of three modes really. You've got program, which is the green program and the green A. There's fully manual, which is taking them both off the green, A and the green program. And then there's the lens is on A, which is automatic sort of aperture, and then you just set the shutter speed you want and use the viewfinder display to tell you if it's going to work or not. So it's a great camera. I'm really lucky to have this one in mint condition. That being said, I am actually selling it. I've sold it on eBay already, and I'm posting it tomorrow. So I was really keen to do a quick review of the camera for my channel before it goes. And really I'm only selling it because after collecting cameras for so long and having lots of different makes and types of cameras, TLRs, SLRs, everything in between, I've started to really focus on Nikon film cameras, and I'm trying to build up a nice collection of Nikon bodies and lenses, such as this FE2, and so the money from the sale of this camera will go towards buying more lenses for my Nikons. What I would say as well is one of the reasons, although the program mode on this is part of the reason it makes it so popular, because it's a great camera to learn on, because you set it in program and it just kind of is fully automatic, and that's great because you can just learn and concentrate on manually focusing, which can take time, but once you've mastered it, I actually prefer it to autofocus now, as strange as that may sound. So it's a great camera for that, but it hasn't got aperture priority, whereas on say this Nikon body here, and I prefer aperture priority, so that is where you set the aperture on the lens and it works out the shutter speed. So it's kind of a more creative setting, because it's all about setting how shallow the depth of field will be, what will be in focus and what will be out of focus, and then letting the camera just sort of work out how fast it's going to take that photo. Aperture priority, which I prefer, whereas this camera is either fully manual, fully automatic, or shutter priority. And so I kind of had to decide, do I really want a camera where I haven't got aperture priority very easily? Obviously what you could do is you hold a little button down, move it to say the aperture I want at 2.8, and then look through the viewfinder and keep trying shutter speeds until I get one that it says, well, that's the correct shutter speed to expose the shot correctly, and just keep changing this until it does that, and then I'm kind of making sure that I stick with the aperture that I want, which is a kind of way of getting aperture priority. But with the Nikon bodies of the same era, I just put it in A and I change the aperture on the lens, and it'll just work out what shutter speed that I should have for say 2.8 or f5.6 or f11, and I prefer that way of working. I'm more of an aperture priority kind of person than a shutter priority or a fully automatic shooter. But it is an absolutely fantastic camera. Okay, so I will run through some of the sort of bits and pieces about it. So it's got one 1,000th of a second shutter speed. That's a cloth curtain shutter. It takes one 4LR44 battery, or you can get a PX28A battery, and that goes in here, and you just unscrew that. What's kind of confusing when you first get this is I'm used to cameras where you put the battery in there. Obviously the battery goes in here, but then you've got this underneath. So you think, well, there's another battery that goes in there, but actually if you take that off, what you see underneath is a gear to connect to a motor drive. So that's nothing to do with batteries at all, it's to do with motor drive. Battery goes in behind here. I've got a battery check button here. You press that and it'll beep, and I think 6 beeps basically means the battery's fine. You set the ISO, you've got the ISO there, you hold down this button and then you move this lever, you set the ISO. So I'll put it on 400. Okay, and it's clicked in now, it won't move until I hold that down again. The other mode you've got, so you've got, this is on, locked, you've got self timer, so go like that, take the shot, and it's beeping away, and then give it a sec. There we go. Excellent. So that's taken a shot. Now, little trick, wind it on again. Now I've changed my mind, I don't want to take the shot. Press the battery button, stops it. Okay? The other thing you could do, it's going, flick it to L, stops it. So those are the two ways to stop it. Flick it either to L to lock it, or press the battery check button, and that has like a dual purpose of stopping your kind of delayed shutter there with your self timer. Okay, you've got a little window there, you can see how many shots you've got. You pull up the crank and the back opens like that. It's a nice clean example. Maybe if I had all the money in the world, I wouldn't sell this camera, but you know, sometimes you got to, when you're into shooting film cameras, you kind of have to sometimes make tough choices, and I kind of had to decide, well, I'm really focusing on Nikon SLRs, and so something had to go, and regrettably I'm going to sell this camera, but it means it will go to somebody who'll actually use it a lot more than I do, which is the main thing really. And then the other thing is, so say you finish the roll of films, you'll see because I opened the back, sorry, it's reset that to S, so it thinks it's got a new roll of film in, but had I finished the roll, it was at say 36 shots, you press down this button underneath, and then you can go like that and rewind the film. There's not huge amounts more. You've got a couple of buttons here on the side. The top one is to lock the exposure, so if you were taking a photo of somebody and they were backlit, it would expose for the background behind them and they'd end up silhouetted, so you wouldn't be able to see their face, it would just be casting shadow. What you could do is move forward with the camera so their face fills the frame, get it to expose for their face, then hold down this button. Now keep it held down, move back to your original position with the background in the shot, take the photo, and that's locking the exposure for their face rather than the background. And then the button underneath is a exposure preview button, I believe. There isn't much more to it really. You just manually focus. As I say, you can set the aperture there, or you can put it into auto. I think a lot of people, if I use this camera, because it hasn't got aperture priority, I just kind of go with it and put it in A and program, enjoy the fact that it's fully auto. I can just focus on composition and manually focusing kind of takes some of the legwork out of using a film camera, and it's a great looking camera. One of the things that is a kind of benefit to the camera is because Canon changed the mount from the FD to the EOS mount, you can get these FD lenses for a lot cheaper than some of the other camera makes. So with Nikon, they've not changed the Nikon F mount since like the late 50s, so lenses that were made back then, all the way up to modern lenses, will mount, which is fantastic, and it's one of the reasons I like Nikon. But the downside of that is that all lenses for Nikon, even really old ones, kind of hung on to their price, and they're still quite expensive to buy. So the benefit of all the lenses working is that they all work, so they're more desirable because you can use them on your digital and your film bodies, and it keeps the price up, which is kind of the cross to bear if you're into your Nikon film cameras. But with Canon, because they changed it, it really knocked the price down on FD lenses, because you can't use them on modern EOS digital autofocus digital cameras, which means that if you get this camera, you can pick up some really lovely fast prime lenses like 50 1.2 and some wide kind of 24mm lenses and things like that, and they don't cost anywhere near as much as the Nikon lenses. So it's a kind of benefit of getting into the Canon FD kind of manual focus film cameras. It's got a really lovely bright viewfinder as well, which I think has got 94% coverage. It's that bright that a lot of sort of comments online have said that, you know, if you're using slower lenses, where it's sort of f5.6 slow lenses, because it's got such a bright viewfinder, it's really helps. You can still manually focus, which is a good benefit to it, really. I think that was kind of it, really. Thank you very much. If you're enjoying my videos, like and share, and leave me comments and I'll try and reply. Thank you very much.